Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Bava Kama, Daf Daled, and we are starting toward the bottom of Gimel Amud Beis, about 12 lines or so from the bottom, at the two dots Hamave veHahever. As a throwback to Shabbos, we learned that there are Arba Avos Nezikin, that there are four categories of damages, and the way that the Mishnah wrote this in the opening Mishnah was Shor, Bor, Mave, and Hever. Shor we know is an animal, Bor we know is a pit, Mave we have no idea what the word means, which is why we're going to work on that now, and Hever is fire. So the Gemara now grapples with, for what us should have been the first question of the Mishnah, which is, what does the word Mave mean? For those of us who are fluent in speaking Hebrew, I'm fairly fluent. What does the word Mave mean? In Mem, Beis, I, and Hey. It's not a normal word. So the Gemara is going to figure this out. It's a machlokas amoraim between Rav and Shmuel. Let's jump right in. My Mave. The Gemara says 3/4 of the way down, what does the Mishnah mean when it says that one of the Avos Nezikin is called Mave? Rav Amar Mave ze Adam. It's a reference to the word Adam. We'll see why the word Mave was used in our Mishnah. Shmuel Amar no Mave ze Shein. And let's explain each shita. So again, Rav holds that Mave is Adam, and Shmuel holds that Mave is actually Shein, damages that an animal does by eating. Right? We discussed this yesterday in different iterations. Let's get into the underbelly of why Rav and Shmuel hold the way that they do. Rav Amar Mave ze Adam dichsiv, because the pasuk says, and this is a pasuk that's in Sefer Yeshaya, a bit of a prophetic pasuk. Says the Gemara, Amar Shomer Asa Boker v'Gam Laila im Tibayun Bayu. And I'm not even going to bother translating. We're just going to go to Rashi. Rashi is 6-7 lines from the bottom of the page, 3 lines before the wide lines. Dibra Hamaschel, Amar Shomer, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem says to the Jewish people, Asa Boker, there's going to be a morning, which is otherwise known as Geula L'Tzadikim, the righteous people will be redeemed. V'Gam Laila, there's also going to be, as Rashi says, Choshech L'Rishayim, there's going to be a dark period for them. And Im Teshuva B'Shuva U'Tevakshu Mechila, if you, the Rishayim, want to do tshuva and come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bayu, you can do that if you want. Alma, be'adam ksiv Bayu. The language of Bayu, the Shoresh, Beis Ayin Hey, Bayu, that's what the pasuk says. And therefore, Rav is of the opinion, we see a link between the word Mave and the word Adam. And therefore, that's why Rav holds the way that he does. Ushmuel Amar, back in the Gemara, 10 lines from the bottom. Ushmuel Amar Mave Zeshain. Where does Mave link up to the word Shein? How does Shmuel know that Mave means teeth? Tichsiv, the pasuk says, Eich nechbesu Esav nivu matzpunov. And what does this pasuk mean? My mashma, says the Gemara. This pasuk is translated kedimitargim Rav Yosef, like Rav Yosef translates. What does that mean? Ichdin ispelish Esav, iskelin matmerohi. When Esav was ambushed or attacked, iskelin matmerohi, iskelin, it was revealed that which was hidden. And teeth are things that are sometimes revealed and sometimes hidden. Sometimes you see a smile, sometimes you don't. Sometimes people, even when they're not smiling, you can see their teeth, depends on how their face is shaped. But Lamaisa, the way that we look at it according to the world of Shmuel, is that it is that which is revealed. So we see that the word Mave in our Mishnah, according to Shmuel, is revealing that which is often not revealed.
But then how does he hold that, why there's both of them?
We're going to discuss that at length today. Very good, because if he holds Shein, and we learned the other day that Shein is also one of the Avos Malacha under Shor, so that's repeating then. We'll see soon that we're going to look at it more narrowly, and really the word Shein is not found in our Mishnah, it's found in another Brisa. Our Mishnah just says Shor Bor Ma'avehever, it doesn't say Shein. You're right, according to one of the ways we learned yesterday, that it was implied, if not included by silently, it was included in Shor, but it's not how we're going to learn today. You'll see. The Rav my taimelo Amar Kishmuel. Why does Rav not like the answer of Shmuel? Let's remember, Rav said Mave is Adam. Shmuel says Mave is teeth. So the Gemara says Amar lach mikatani nive. The grammar doesn't work, and the pasuk that Shmuel wants to use, it doesn't say nive in that pasuk. It says nivu, meaning that which is lost is where the word nivu is connected to, not on that which is not on that which is hidden. So says the Gemara, Ushmuel my time Lomar Kara, for a very similar reason, Amar Lach, Miktani Boa, the grammar for his usage of the word is also not correct. Rav had in the pasuk, V'gam Laila im tibayun bayu, it should have said Boa, which it didn't. So the Gemara says, Michti, if that's the case, then Kroi lo kemar daiki v'lo kemar daiki. If the arguments are correct, then neither Rav or Shmuel have good psukim to support their shitas. So we're kind of back to the drawing board in regards to where does Rav get his shita that the word mave means Adam, and where does Shmuel get the shita that mave means Shein. So now the Gemara is going to analyze again. 5 lines from the bottom. This is version 2, our second attempt at trying to understand why each of them don't hold of the other. Rav, my taima lo omar kishmuel. Why doesn't Rav hold like Shmuel? Because Rav says Tana shiur, our Mishnah is speaking about a shiur, and therefore the chol mili de shiur. Our whole Mishnah can't all be talking about shiur. The word shiur is talking about shiur. The word mava has to be talking about something else. It must be an Adam. Ushmuel nami hatana le shiur. What about Shmuel? We also see that shiur is an inclusive term, and maybe like Tex was hinting to before, that if we say that shiur is part of our Mishnah, and shiur was a sweeping terminology to include everything about a shiur, if that's true, then maybe the word Shein should not be learned from Mavet, because maybe Shein should have been included in shiur. That was exactly what Tex was asking. So says the Gemara, 2 possible answers, both of which are somewhat complicated. Here is answer number 1. Let's just keep our focus. The eye on the prize is trying to understand the shita of Shmuel. How does Shmuel understand that Maveh means Shein if our Mishnah already spoke about shiur? We're 3 lines from the bottom on Gimel Amud Beis. The Gemara says, Amar Yehuda, Tana shiur. Really, the author of our Mishnah spoke about shiur, but that's only as it relates lekarno. When our Mishnah says shiur, it really only meant keren. It didn't mean everything shiur, it only meant keren. And therefore, umave has room to now be l'sheno, to be for teeth. See, Tex was bothered by the fact that our Mishnah said shiur, shvarim have teeth, and therefore how can you say mave has teeth? He's right. So according to Shmuel, interpretation number 1 that Rabbi Yehuda gives on behalf of Shmuel, it's interesting because Rabbi Yehuda was a Talmud of Shmuel. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, no, other way, no. Yeah, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Bar Shmuel, yeah. He was a Talmud of Shmuel. So he's explaining on behalf of his Rebbe, and what he's saying is that, when the Mishnah said shiur, it didn't mean everything about the shiur. It only meant keren. And therefore, the word maveh is available for the word shein, and that's not a stira anymore. That's not a stira because shiur only meant keren. Didn't mean everything about a shiur, only meant the horns. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, our Mishnah is speaking about a shiur, which is a keren, a bor, which is a pit, a maveh, which is teeth, and hever, which is fire. So for him, kaftor v'ferach, our Mishnah is clear. And the second part of our Mishnah, which says, and if you flip back to Beis and Aleph, you'll see that the second line of our Mishnah wrote, Lo harei hashor ke harei hamave. Remember? So now we've reinterpreted shiur and mave. Shiur is keren, and mave is shein. So back to our Gemara. Our Gemara says 2 lines from the bottom on Gimel Amud Beis. How do we understand that qualification of the Mishnah? Lo re'i ha keren she'ein hana lehezeko. When we are talking about a horn where there's no actual hana of an animal to pierce someone. So that's one world, and that's different than kira'i hashein sheyesh hana lehezeka. It's a different type of avnezikin. What the Gemara is getting to, what our Mishnah was getting to, is why did our Mishnah bother to say all 4 options? And right now we're specifically looking at shiur and maveh. And the Gemara says that according to Rabbi Yehuda's interpretation of Shmuel, the reason why we had to have keren is because keren has no hana. When the animal pierces another animal, there's nothing pleasurable about that for the animal. Masha'ein kain, if an animal comes into my orchard and starts eating oranges off the trees, there's a lot of hana there. So because those 2 avos nezikin function differently, one's with hana, one's without hana, therefore says the Gemara, we need both of them. And kiriya shein sheyesh hana lehezeka. And says the Gemara at the top of Daled Amud Aleph, the opposite is also true. Below re'i hashein, shein is also, we already made one difference between keren and shein. Here's a difference between shein and keren. Below re'i hashein she'ein kavanaso lehazik. When it comes to an animal who starts to eat from my oranges in my orchard, he doesn't know that he's damaging anything. He's not trying to hurt anybody or anything. He's hungry. but he's an animal, so he doesn't know the difference between that which is his and that which isn't his. So there, she'ein kavanaso lahazik, but kiriha keren shekavanaso lahazik. When the bull is charging at the matador with his horns down, he knows exactly what he's doing. It's fight or flight. So he's fighting now, and he's hurting. So therefore, we need to have the double terminology in our Mishnah. The Mishnah's language was shor and mabeh. Rabbi Yehuda unpacked that to mean keren and shein. All of this is answer number one for Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that maveh means shein. Says the Gemara, wait 1 second. The lav kal v'chomer. Isn't that in fact a kal v'chomer? That these two things, keren and shein, maybe we can learn one from the other. How so? So the Gemara says, Uma shein she'ein kavanasa lahazik chayiv. In regards to an animal that damages by eating, where he had no intention to cause damage. Remember, he's just an animal. So he sees oranges growing. He's hungry. He bites them. Simple. So if we're going to be chayiv on what that animal does, when he didn't even have kavana to do damage, then keren shekavanaso lahazik lo kol shekain. Maybe, says the Gemara, you should have only taught me the case of shein, and I instantly would have known the case of keren. Why? Kol shekain. If I'm going to be chayav on the lesser case when I wasn't even trying to damage, for sure when my animal charges at you and hurts you, pashut that I'm going to be obligated to pay for that. So says the Gemara, no, it's not true. You can't have it be the case that we teach the case of shor without maveh. We need both. Itzrich, 4 lines down on Daled Amud Aleph. I might have thought, we actually have precedent in halacha where there is kavana, but someone is still pater. And that's the case of, let's say I were to own an eved and an amma. I own a servant and a maidservant. Says the Gemara, eved ve'ama, lava falgab, even though it's the case that maybe they were in the mindset of the kavanas and lahazik, afilu hachi pater, tire. If I have servants and they walk into your yard and they burn down your haystack, I'm pater. So the Gemara says, maybe we should have said, hachanami loshna. We need to have both languages. We can't use the kal v'chomer that we just recommended. Why? Because maybe the kal v'chomer is wrong. Maybe really shein is no different than eved ve'ama, where they're completely pater. So therefore you have no kal v'chomer anymore. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi, that's not good. That's not correct. You can't learn anything from the world of Eved V'ama and use that as a rejection of a Kal V'chomer, because Atu Eved V'ama, Lav Taima Rabba Isbahu. They have a tremendously good reason why the Baal would be pater. Again, if I had a maidservant, why would I be pater if he or she, my Eved or Amma, does damage? Says the Gemara, because Shema Yakni Tenu Rabbo, maybe had it been that they could do damage and I would incur the responsibility, then perhaps what could happen is that I could be a bad boss. My avadim and shvachos hate me, and they walk around damaging things to make me pay. If you work for me, you're my eved, you're my shivcha, and you're mad at me, you take a key, you walk down the street, and you just hold the key against the cars as you walk down 20 cars in a row damaged. So the halacha has to be that the eved can't make me pay for that. It can't be. It can't be, because otherwise we have a scenario where my angry eved will end up costing me tons of money and I have no control over them. It's not possible.
Responsibility over the eved, the employee or whatever.
That's what the Gemara is saying. That's Rav Ashi's shita. And this is actually quoted in the Rambam. The Rambam is of the opinion that an eved who intentionally does something in order to incur his boss to pay, flatline, total zero. It's a little difficult. I agree. I'm with you. What? The eved doesn't have anything. It's just an unfortunate, it just falls between the cracks. Nobody pays.
So you hire me to be your slave.
Hire is a strong word. I own you.
You own me.
Right.
And I don't feel like.
You're mad at me.
Yeah, I'm mad at you for whatever reason.
So you go key all the cars in the McCord parking lot. None of the owners will ever get paid back.
Someone has to go to jail.
You, but it won't be a financial payment because you own nothing. Everything you have is mine.
Or is that like a pater of a lesser?
Oh, it's usser. Yeah, I mean, the Eved is not allowed to do that, but it doesn't mean that I is the Baalam Chaya.
Right, but he's also public.
Doesn't make
Your slate.
you're calling out the conflict in our brains because we have very consequential brains. If you do X, there needs to be a punishment. If you cause damage, you have to pay. That's how we're wired.
Right.
This is an exemption to that rule. I know it's hard for you. It's hard. I asked a shaila to Rabbi Shmuel first. This happened to me about 6 or 7 years ago. I was very uncomfortable with the psak, but I listened to him. I was opening my car door at Winston Towers, normal. A huge gust of wind popped out and the door slipped out of my hand and caused damage to the door next to me.
That's what we ended off the share with yesterday.
That what? Although that would have been Aish in this case, because it fell out of my hand. Although the car is stationary, it could be a blend. That's a good shiloh. Is it Aish or Bor? Anyways, I called him right first. He's like, "You're completely putter. Why are you even asking?" He's like, "You should know that." I'm like, "Shoot." So embarrassed. Yeah. He's like, "Grandma ben Ezekiel is putter." Yeah, no, but you want to leave a note? That's a Maseches, but it's not. You're welcome to, but it's just, you're absolutely zero obligation. That's this. Things fall through the cracks. Deb.
Why would the Eved not be responsible for the payment?
He has
nothing, but he should be responsible for the payment.
What does that mean?
It's impossible.
What does that mean? It's a theoretical concept.
I understand. Well, the answer
is, So-
if he's ever free, he shouldn't be relieved from the responsibility of having to make the payment. He physically can't do it, but it still seems to me he should be responsible.
That's a theoretical comment. And maybe David's right. Maybe if ever he's freed, he carries this long-term burden. I don't know either. I don't know. It could be. It could be that he, and by the way, there's also, let's not forget, there's also the long-term consequences, which is that Hashem runs the world. And if the punishments in this world don't even out mathematically, they'll certainly even out in the next world. We also certainly have, whatever the right word is. Our philosophy is that things will even out upstairs. In fact, our Gemara says, we've had this a number of times, that Rishaim enjoy this world more, so they have less over there. So there's a math equation that none of us know. But in these cases, things figure themselves out. They figure themselves out. They do. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says, and therefore the Gemara says we can't use this line of reasoning to question Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore the Gemara tries another way. We're about 10, 12 lines down on Dal and Ella, and the language here is a little messy. It should be parich ve'ema hachi. I should ask a different question. What did we just say above? What did Rabbi Yehuda say? He said, Lo re'i hakeren shekavanaso lahazik, a keren where the intent of the animal using its horn is to damage. That's different than kiri'i hashen she'ein kavanaso lahazik. This we pointed out, that when an animal is eating, he doesn't have kavanah to damage. He's hungry and he's not bright, so he just eats whatever he sees. But there's a difference as well in the flip side, is that when an animal eats, he's enjoying. But when it comes to the keren, now what's the problem with all of this? The problem is v'regel mai shiur. Now, according to this approach, you gotta hold cup here. According to this approach of Rabbi Yehuda, we've managed to include keren, which is shiur, and shein, which is maveh. What happened to regel? On yesterday in Daf Yomi, it was on Monday. It was on Shabbos. On Shabbos we learned a brisa. I'm just going to read this brisa. This brisa is on the top of Beis Amid Beis, 5 lines down. The brisa reads: Gimel avos nemru b'shor hakeren v'hashein v'haregel. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda's interpretation of Shmuel in our Mishnah, he's included keren, which is shiur. He's included shein, which is maveh. What happens to regel? You just leave it out? Are you arguing on the brisa? Are you saying that regel is not one of the avos nezikin of shiur? So the Gemara is pushing on Rabbi Yehuda a little bit. Like, I see how you did what you did. I got it. I see that you made shiur into keren, you made maveh into shein. What happens to regel? Shiur, do we leave it out? So what would Rabbi Yehuda answer? No, we don't leave it out. Rather, at the end of our Mishnah, when it says kishehizik chav hamazik, that's la'asuye regel. And if you'd flip back to our Mishnah, you'd see that that's in fact what our Mishnah says, 2 lines before the end of the Mishnah. Ucheshehizik, when there is damage, chav hamazik, that language is a broad, inclusive language to teach us that regel is also included. Therefore, we have the trifecta, shiur, is Keren, Mave is Shane, and that last line of our Mishnah, when it says Kishihizik Chava Mazik, that's Regel. Asks the Gemara, okay, but listen to Behedja. Just write it. Just write it. Put it in our Mishnah. If you're saying that Shor is Keren and Shane is Mave, write the word Regel. And that question is so strong that the Gemara rejects Rabbi Yehuda. And we're back to our starting point, which is how in the world does Shmuel learn our Mishnah? And the Gemara says a third of the way down in the name of Rava, here's another attempt. Ela Amar Rava really Tana Shor li Raglo. Shor isn't Keren, Shor is Regel. Umave l'sheno, and Mave is Shane. V'hachi kamar. And here is what we're going to be talking about now, the comparisons. The reason why we need both Shor and Mave, which is equivalent to Regel and Shane, is as follows. V'hachi kamar. Lo re'iha Regel. Damages of Regel are different. Shehezeko matsui. Animals walk all the time. Basically, everything they step on, they ruin, basically. And that's different than Kiriya Shane. Shane hezeka matsui. Most damage is not done by the animal chewing on things. And the converse, and when an animal does in fact do damage with teeth, where he does enjoy what he's eating, that's different than Kiriya Regel. So we need both of them. Here too, the Gemara says, all right, that's great, but you just created a new problem. We were bothered in our last iteration of Rabbi Yehuda that he included Keren and Shane and left out Regel. Look what you did. You included Regel and Shane and left out Keren. So the Gemara says halfway down, for Keren Mai, shiur. Now, how did you? This wasn't even a smart response. Not to be rude, but like you just created another problem. So the Gemara says, no, don't worry. Same answer as before, but just now including something different. That when our Mishnah at the open of the Masechta says Kishihizik Chava Mazik, that includes the case of Keren, and now we have our trifecta according to the answer of Rava. We have Shor being Regel, Mave being Shane, and the end of the Mishnah when it says Chava Mazik, that is including Keren. Asks the Gemara like we asked before, V'lisnei behedya. Why don't we have Keren explicitly in our Mishnah? And the Gemara says, not like we said before, last time this was the end of the question. Now we have another answer. The Gemara says, B'muadin mitchilasan kamairi. Our Mishnah is only dealing with cases where one is muad from the beginning. We don't really know in lumdus what this means. We're going to have to spend time on it later in the Masechta. But betamin ulvesof muadin lo kamairi. But our Mishnah is not dealing with an animal that first has to prove itself as a muad, and that is talking about Keren. Therefore, Keren is left out of our Mishnah. This is an acceptable answer. And the Gemara therefore embraces the answer of Rava, and here is the conclusion. According to Rava, according to Shmuel, here's what our Mishnah means. Our Mishnah means that Shor is Regel, Mave is Shane, and last but not least, Keren is left out. That's what the Gemara concludes. The reason that Keren is left out is because betamin ulevisof muadin lo kamari. Our Mishnah is not dealing with cases that first have to prove themselves as muad. Halfway down, the Gemara says, "Ushmuel my time alo amar karav." If you'll remember from the beginning of the Gemara today, we had to do version 2 of this question and answer. We just answered why Shmuel doesn't hold, why Rav doesn't hold like Shmuel. But now, Shmuel, why don't you hold like Rav that it's Adam? So Amar Lach, Shmuel says as follows: Isalka daitach Adam. If you want to say that Mave means Adam, then we have a big problem. What's the problem? Haktani Seifa. We have a Mishnah that's found a little bit later in the Masechta on Tes Vava Midbeis. Look what it says: Shor hamuad, b'shor hamazik, b'rshus hanizak, ha'adam. So Shmuel is bothered. What do you mean Adam is Mave? Adam is explicitly written in the next Mishnah. Rav, what are you talking about? Rav, how can you say that Mave is Adam? Mamish, we have an express Mishnah. It's not a Brisa. It's not a Tosefta. Lo rechokahi. It's mamish the next. It's in 10 blot. So why, Rav, would you ever tell me that Mave means Adam if the next Mishnah says Adam? You have to be wrong. Shmuel can't even handle the thought. Of course, it's wrong. So says the Gemara, the listening bereisha. Turns out right. So it says, well, I have a listening bereisha. Why is it that Adam wasn't listed in this part of the Mishnah according to Shmuel? Says the Gemara, because our Mishnah is benizke mamon kamairi. Our Mishnah is dealing with when something that I own does damage. But Benizke gufo lo kamairi. But I'm not dealing with the damage that's caused by the person himself. By that which I own, yes, that's the Mishnah on Daf Beis. The Mishnah later on is dealing with even if it were to be me, but our Mishnah is not dealing with that. So that's how Shmuel understands things and says our Mishnah cannot possibly be talking about Adam. Our Mishnah is only talking about when things that I own cause damage. I v'Rav Nami. Okay, Shmuel Stark, he's got a really strong shita. What about Rav? Hak Tani Adam b'Seifa. Rav, the rubber's got to hit the road. If you know on Tes Vav Amud Beis, Rav, that the word Adam is included, then how can you interpret Maveh on Daf Beis to be Adam? It says the Gemara, Amar Lach Rav, 2/3 of the way down, Hahu lemechsheve behade muadin hu de'asa. When we include the word Adam in the Mishnah on Tes Vav Amud Beis, that's because that's a list of things that are specifically in the realms of Muad. But it doesn't mean that it isn't part of our original Mishnah. Our original Mishnah is Avos Nezikin. And Maveh is Adam Avos Nezikin. That's because there's another listing happening. But it doesn't mean that Maveh doesn't belong on Beis Amud Beis. Amud Aleph, it does. Says the Gemara, okay, well, if that's true, then what does the second line of the Mishnah mean? Like on Beis Amud Aleph, we then said, remember, we said Ashur Abor V'Maveh Hever, and on the second line of our Mishnah on Beis Amud Aleph, it says Lo Harei Hashor K'Harei Amaveh. So now we have to Umay Lo Harei. How then do we understand that we need both shor and maveh? Says the Gemara, Hachi Kamar. Lo Re'i Hashor Shemeshalem Es HaKofer. A shor, we have to pay a punishment called kofer. Kiri Adam She'ein Meshalem Es HaKofer. There is no special punishment of kofer for a person. And a human being, when he causes damage, he's obligated in arba dvarim. It's really 5. It's nezek, tsar, ripui, sheves, and boshes, the 5 punishments that we will extensively learn throughout nezikin. And I'll just briefly translate what they are. Nezek is damages that I cause. Tsar is pain that I cause. The Gemara is going to teach us how to measure these things. Ripui is medical bills. Sheves is a loss of time, and boshes is your sense of busha. So we have to pay for all those things. Again, the Gemara has a formula for all of these things. But lemaisa, in this case, when a person causes damage to another person, so he has to pay arba or maybe 5 things. We leave out nezek here. It really should be 5. That's different than kiriya shor she'ein bo arba dvarim. So that's what the Gemara says. That's why we need both shor and maveh, according to Rab. Shor has its own halachos, and maveh has its own halachos, and they're not the same. Therefore, we have to include both. The Gemara now concludes with that. We're good to go. And we move to the next part of our Mishnah. And back in the Mishnah, in Beis Amud Aleph, the next part of our Mishnah that was difficult was the 6th line of the Masechta that said, Atzara Shaveh Shebehen. So now we're going to analyze that line. And 8 lines from the bottom, on Daled Amud Aleph, the Gemara says, Atzara Shaveh Shebehen. What is the common denominator of all of the Avos Nezikin on Beis Amud Aleph? Says the Gemara, the common denominator is Shedarkan Lahazik, that they are, it is their habit, it is their way to cause damage. Says the Gemara, V'chi shor darko lahazik. What, every time you see a shor, it charges at you? Every time? Says the Gemara, yeah, it's bimuad. We're talking about an animal that's a muad. Says the Gemara, even a muad doesn't attack every time it sees the red carpet. Says the Gemara, umuad darko lahazik. I mean, really? Every time? Says the Gemara, kevan di'iyayid, yes, orchehu. Once we establish that a shor is a muad, yeah, we assume that it's going to cause damage. Exactly right. Says the Gemara, wait 1 second. One of the Avos Nezikin that we had in our Mishnah was Maveh, which according to Rav is Adam, that's a person. Adam, Darko Lahazik. I think we're seeing in today's era that some people literally are Darko Lahazik. There are people on earth who are wired to injure. It's true. But the average person on earth is not like that. Adam, Darko Lahazik, says the Gemara. Yes, but Yasheng, when they're sleeping. What are you talking about? Yashen Darko Lahazik? You wake up every day, the person lying next to you is covered in bruises? Hashem Yerachim. That can't be that every time you fall asleep, you hurt somebody. Says the Gemara, since when you're sleeping, your body folds up, your body straightens out, you hit the lamp, you drop your iPhone on the floor. Some people are crazy sleepers. So then, yes, Orchehu, unbelievable. We assume that a sleeping person will cause injury. Halachic assumption. And Adam muad la'olam, and therefore, If you cause damage while I'm not talking about sleepwalking. I'm just talking about sleeping. If you cause damage while you're sleeping, you're chayiv. It's not grama, it's not indirect. You're pashat chayiv, like as if you were awake. Why? Because Adam is muad la'olam. Okay, so the Gemara accepts this as well, that darko lahazik, that all of these 4 avos nazikin that are listed in our Mishnah, shor bar maveh hever, all of them are darka lahazik. Says the Gemara, what did our Mishnah mean when it said ushmirasan alecha, that I, as the owner, am obligated to watch them? This is going to be difficult for Rav, because the language says ushmirasan. Their shmira is upon me. What about Adam? Adam, shmiras gufo alavhu. The language is wrong. It should have been shmiras gufo, not shmiras son alecha, but shmiras gufcha alecha. The language is wrong. Says the Gemara, that's not a good argument. 4 lines from the bottom. If you're going to argue that way, then we have to look at the following brisa. Hadatani Karna. Karna was a Tana. Karna taught us the following. Arba'as avos nezikin, to Adam, echad mehen, Adam shmiras gufo alavhu. Says the Gemara, it has to be that the language is shmiras gufo alav. Ella, it must be kid amar le Rabbi Abo latana tani Adam shmiras gufo alav. He actually does have to watch himself. It's correct. It's a change in language. Top of Daladam at base hachanami. Back in our Mishnah too, we have to change the language in our Mishnah just to be like Rav, and therefore hachanami tani Adam shmiras gufo alav. Kaftor Vaferach, we've answered up so far every part of our Mishnah. According to Shmuel, we said, what was the conclusion? We said that according to Shmuel, that shor is a reference to regel, mave is a reference to shein, and karen doesn't belong in our Mishnah. And according to Rav, we said shor is everything shor. That's shor, which includes shein, karen, and regel. And mave is adam. And then we explained all the various parts of our Mishnah that yes, shmirasan alecha, and yes, all of these people are dangerous. Good. Says the Gemara, you know what? It's nice that Rav and Shmuel have their machlokas, but there are actually other sources that speak about what the word mave means. We're going to be going until about 15 lines or so, 12 lines from the bottom of the page. Almost there. Says the Gemara, wait 1 second. Maskif la Rav Mari ve'ema. Perhaps we should say mave zemayim. Maybe we should say that mave doesn't mean Adam and it doesn't mean shein. Maybe it's talking about water. Kidichsiv, because the pasuk says, this is a pasuk in Yishai, ki k'toach eish hamasim mayim tive eish. So what do we see? The word tive, and we see the word mayim. Says the Gemara, no, the grammar is wrong. Miksiv mayim nivo. The tive is connected to the eish, not to the mayim in grammar, and therefore you cannot say that. Tive eish ksiv. It's about the eish. Says the Gemara, fine. Then maybe we should say it's eish. Maskif la Rav Zvid ve'ema mav is eish. V'chiksiv tive ve'eshu dechsiv. You just told me that the word tive is connected to eish. Givaldik. So now say that it's going to be eish. What's going to be our question? What are the avos nezikin arba avos in our Mishnah? The last one is hever. So if mave is eish and hever is eish, asks the Gemara, ihachi, my hamave vehahever. If mave is going to be eish and hever is eish, that doesn't work either. V'chitema prusha kamafaresh. And if you want to say no, mave dehainu hever, if that's what you want to say, that doesn't work. Yachi arba. Our Mishnah says that there's arba avos nezikin, and if mave is going to be explained by hever, shlosha havu, doesn't work. And v'chitema tana shor de ispe tarte. There's really 2 kinds of shor. Ihachi lo zeh v'zeh sheyesh ben ruach chaim eish my ruach chaim ispe. If you say that, then mave has to be something that's alive, because that was one of the questions that we said in our Mishnah. Sheyesh bo ruach chaim. So mave cannot be fire. V'su, and furthermore, mai ke hare eish. What then would we say is that it's like eish in our Mishnah? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work. So therefore, the Gemara says you're 100% right. We reject it. Now the Gemara is going to highlight a couple of different Makomos that contrast with our Mishnah. In our Mishnah, we said that there were arba avos nezikin hein. Take a look at this brisa. The Gemara says a quarter of the way down, a third of the way down. Tani Revoshaya. There aren't 4. Shalosha asar avos nezikin. 4 is for the slackers. What? 13. Shomer chinam, hashoel, nosei sachar, v'hasocher. Let's pause and translate. People who watch things for free, people who borrow, people who watch things for money, people who rent. That's 4. Nezek tsar v'ripui sheves uboshes, which I've already explained, certain fundamental types of payments that I'm obligated in. That's another 5. Ve'arba demas nisan hatzleisar. 13. Says the Gemara. Okay, I got it. You showed me that there are a lot more than in our Mishnah. Ask the Gemara, V'tana didan, my time alo tani hani. Okay, why'd you leave out all of the ones? Why'd you leave out the extra 9 that Rav Oshaya found in the Brisa? Bishlama l'Shmuel. If we were to have said like Shmuel, I could understand why they were left out, because our Mishnah is Benizke Mamon Kamairi, Benizke Gufo Lo Kamairi. Because our Mishnah on Daf Beis Amud Aleph is only talking about Nizke Mamon, damages that are caused by the things that I own, but not by me. Then we have to take out all of the 5 punishments. We have to take out Adam, all the different things that are person related. Elul Rav, listening. But according to Rav, who says that Maveh is Adam, we should include all of the different 5 forms of payment. So says the Gemara, Tana Adam, V'chol Mili de Adam. We don't need to. When our Mishnah says Maveh, which means Adam, it meant all of those other things. Rav is not saying that we disagree that there are 13 categories. He's just saying that they're all subsumed in the word Adam, which is Maveh. They're all there. Rav Oshia Nami, Hatani le Adam. Rav Oshia also said Adam. Why by him are they not all under the umbrella of Adam? So says the Gemara, Trei Gavne Adam. According to Rav Oshia, there's 2 different kinds of person. Tana Adam, the Azik Adam. One is a man who injures other men, and the Tana Adam, the Azik Shor. And the other is a man who injures animals. Very, very different. Though in the research, they're not so different. Serial killers start by killing animals. Just saying. Usually one leads to the other.
Requirements. The payment requirements.
The payment requirements are very different. So says the Gemara,
Psychology might be similar.
the psychology might be similar. If you're killing cats when you're younger, you're killing people when you're older. So says the Gemara, if you've ever killed a cat, I'm not making assumptions about you. I don't want anyone to like walk out here and grab a sniper or you're fine. Says the Gemara halfway down, if this is true, shor nami, listen trey gavne shor. Oh, if by a person we make such a distinction, maybe we should make a similar distinction by a shor. Listen shor da azik shor. And then separately, v'lisnei shor da azik adam. Says the Gemara, Haimai. Wait 1 second. Bishlama adam da azik shor nezek hudim mishalim. Adam da azik adam mishalim arba dvarim. You can't. The punishments are totally different between a man who injures an animal and a man who injures a person. PETA notwithstanding, people are more chashuv than animals. There's nothing to talk about. That part's clear. So therefore, the punishments are drastically different. Ela shor, mali shor da azik shor, mali shor da azik adam. The punishments are going to be the same. For the Baal, the punishment is going to be the same if the animal does the damage. So why would we distinguish between shor? Says the Gemara, Edi v'Edi, nezek hudim mishalim. At the end of the day, the Baal is going to pay the nezek, whatever the nezek is. I didn't hurt you directly, my animal. I'm sorry, it's nezek, but it's nezek. We can't distinguish between shvarim. These 4 types of shomrim, the adam, the azik, shorhu, the katani. That's a person who injured a shor. Says the Gemara, you're right, and with this we'll conclude. Tani hezeka de biyadayim the tani, the katani hezeka de memela. There's a difference between a type of damage that's done with your own 2 hands when you're a shomer chinam, for example, versus that happens memela, something that happens by accident. And therefore, there's a distinction between our Mishnah and the Brisa of Rav Oshaya. We'll stop right here. When we pick up tomorrow, we're going to see. Just look at the next few words. Tani Reb Chia esrim ve'arba avos nazikim. We'll see that there's a broader Brisa, still more, and we'll have to figure out how that fits in with what we've already learned. Wishing you all a beautiful night.